Hey guys, it's Elisa. Welcome back to my channel. In this video, I'm going to walk you through IELTS Speaking Part 1 question. Describe where you live, or describe your accommodations, or what kind of housing do you live in? You can answer all three of these questions in pretty much the same way. So I'm going to give you my answer. I'm going to point out some vocabulary, some idioms that you guys might want to use yourselves. And then I'll give you a little bit of what I like to call sentence starters to just kind of help you get started with your own answer. Feel free to make your answer as I do and kind of come along with me. All right, so let's get into my answer. So my answer is, my apartment is a pretty normal modern apartment. It has 2 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. Because I have the extra space, I've turned the second bedroom into an office, and I also use it as an extra closet. I actually don't spend very much time in my second bedroom. I just use it to pay bills and store my extra clothes and other things. It's pretty roomy and there's plenty of space for me to relax and put my feet up. But there is one thing I would change. It's my kitchen. It's smaller than I'd prefer, and I wouldn't mind renovating it. I'm always wanting to make changes. All right, so there you go. That is my answer. A couple of things you want to keep in mind. My answer is a little bit longer than I think your answer has to be. I said this in previous videos, but it is really, really important. I think you want to keep your part 1 question to about 5 sentences. That's not a rule. You don't have to count your sentences. The examiner certainly will not be counting your sentences. But about 5 sentences means that you will talk enough to allow them to understand that you have a good command of the English language. If you only say 1 or 2 sentences, they're not going to know that, and that's how you can very easily end up getting a 5 or lower. So if you have about 5 normal size sentences, or maybe 3 really long sentences, then you should be okay, and that should be you talking enough. And then the other thing that you want to notice is I have an idiom in there. So I like to advise that people do 1 idiom for part 1, about 3 or so idioms for part 2, and then 1 idiom for part 3. And that just gives you a total of 5 for your entire speaking exam. And that should be enough to show the examiner that you have some idioms, you know how to use them correctly. Don't use them unless you are going to use them correctly. And I do have a video about 15 idioms that you can easily use on the IELTS exam. It goes over idioms that mean happy, relaxed, and easy, and they're easy to just go ahead and kind of slip into any IELTS question. I will link that in the description below. But these rules that I'm giving you, these are kind of rules to make sure that you get a 7 or higher, which I know is what a lot of people are going for. Now, if your English isn't very good in general, just using 5 sentences and, using 5 idioms is not going to get you a 7. The rest of your English has to be good as well. And that is why I'm going to give you guys a little bit of not just structure, but kind of sentence starters. And so these are just ways to start your sentences in a way that is grammatically correct. If that's something that you struggle with, you don't have to do it. These are just suggestions. If you're good as it is, then don't worry about them. So in this case, you really are just describing where you live. If you need help in being able to say more, filling out those 5 sentences, you can talk about the different rooms that are in your house, whether it's bedrooms. I only mentioned bedrooms. I talked about living in an apartment. Perhaps you live in a house and maybe your house is 3 floors or 3 levels. Then you might want to mention that. You could go through and talk about on the first floor, there's this. On the second floor, there's this. On the third floor, there's this. You could talk about your outdoor space. So I'm not home right now, but at the moment, my outdoor space is a beautiful balcony that looks out onto the ocean. So I could talk about that. So you can really just describe things. You can describe what the rooms are used for. So if you're going to go through and you're going to say, this is, we have a kitchen and this is where I cook with my family. We have our living room and that's where we have movie night. So you can go through however you want to list the space in your house, and you can also talk about what you do there briefly. You don't have to get into huge detail with that. There are follow-up questions where they will ask you about your favorite room and things like that. I have an answer for that too. So you have ways to do that too. So let's go over some sentence starters first, and then we will hit up the vocabulary that I used in this one. So just when you start off, perhaps you want to start off with my or our. You kind of have to decide, are you going to say you live alone? Are you going to say you live with your family? Are you going to say you live with a roommate? Kind of have that decided ahead of time. That way you know like what you're going to talk about. There is some noise behind me that I'm really hoping you cannot hear. They're doing a little bit of work. But anyway, so you're going to want to decide who you live with ahead of time. It is perfectly fine to lie. I lie in most of my questions, actually. Yeah. So if you're living by yourself, you're going to say my house, my apartment, my condo, my space, any of those. And then you could do our, and you're going to use the same words, our house, our apartment, our space, whatever it is. And then you can say, our house is tiny, our house is huge, our house is a good size. So you have all of those ways that you can kind of start this off. And if you've seen my videos, you know I am big on figuring out how you're going to start things off. I talk about that a lot in my answers for part 2 questions. Obviously in part 1 you don't have time to think about it, but you have time now while you're preparing. So just kind of know ahead of time, because these are, questions that are common. So know ahead of time, who do you live with for these questions, and how would you start your sentence? Always kind of know, how would I start my sentence? And when you're practicing, make sure you're starting your sentences well. And if you're struggling to start your sentences, then you really should practice specifically starting your sentences. So then you can talk about what you have. We have, I have, and so then you can just kind of start listing the parts of wherever you live, the parts of your house, the parts of your apartment. So that could be, we have 3 bedrooms. That could be, we have a living room, a dining room, 2 bedrooms, a kitchen. However it is you want to list those, you can go ahead and start doing that. There is a great way to start sentences. There is a huge community garden in our building. There is a fitness center. There is whatever. There are a lot of amenities, and then you can list the amenities. Amenities are things like a fitness center, a theater room, a pool, those kind of things that a community can share. Usually you find those in apartment and condo buildings, but you can also find those in neighborhoods where they'll have like a community center or something like that that's just for the people in the neighborhood. It's like a perk of living there. Because I have is another way that you can start a sentence. So because I have this extra room, I'm able to store this in it. Because I have my dream kitchen, I'm able to do this and that. Because I have my dream kitchen, I have a bazillion kitchen appliances. You can tell what I want. I don't have my dream kitchen. I said that in my answer. I've never had my dream kitchen yet, but fingers crossed. We have a is another good way to start a sentence. We have a pool for the community, or we have a pool in our backyard that our family loves to swim in. We have a pool table in the basement. So whatever it is that you have. We have a special room for our kids to do their homework. I don't know. Whatever it is. And it could just be our kids have a playroom. Our kids have a room where they do their homework. You can say it in that way too. You can talk about where things are. Things could be behind something. Things could be in front of something. My mannerisms were wrong on that. Behind something, in front of something. You can talk about that too. So maybe you have a painting of your whole family or a picture of your whole family behind the sofa. Or maybe you have a flag in front of your house. That's definitely something that's very popular here. So anytime you want to talk about something that's behind of or in front of, and speaking of having a flag in front of your house, you can also speak about the outside of your house. So if you live in a house, you can talk about your front yard. You can talk about your porch. If you have, I used to have like a little garden out on my balcony. So if you have a garden out on your balcony, or if you have a garden in your backyard, then that's something that you can talk about. So you can talk about the immediate outside of your house too. If you get really desperate, you can talk about the whole street or the whole neighborhood. Just make sure you keep bringing it back to your house and you're talking about those things in a way that talks about where you live. So I live in a community that's really tight. Everybody knows each other. Everybody socializes together. We have a community center. There's a playground. And then our house itself has 4 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms. So you kind of do it in that way where you're bringing it into your house, but you're talking about how you live in your community if you want to go about it in that way. All right, so let's go through some of this vocabulary. I use the phrase put my feet up, which just means to relax. In the idiom video that I will link in the description, there's a ton of words for relaxing if you want to use some. If you're going to talk about where you live, hopefully it's a relaxing place for you. But using relaxed or happy idioms are really easy in this case. So I also mentioned the phrase junk room, and it's literally that. It's a room full of junk. I no longer have a junk room, but I used to. It was embarrassing. I got rid of it. So, but a junk room is literally just a room full of random things that you're like collecting. You don't really use them very often. You just can't seem to throw them away, but you probably should throw them away. And when you move, that's how I got rid of my junk room. I moved. When you move, you probably will throw them away because they're not usually worth bringing with you. Otherwise, they wouldn't be in your junk room. Roomy is another word that I use, and that just means plenty of space, lots of space. It's roomy. I can stretch out. There's so much space here. It's the opposite of being cramped. If you live in a 1-bedroom apartment with 5 people, you are cramped. There's just too many people and not enough space. When it's roomy, ooh, you got lots of room to yourself. I also use the phrase, I wouldn't mind, and that's just another way of saying I would like. So that's a good way to kind of use sentence variety. So instead of saying, I would like to have this, you can say, I wouldn't mind having this. They really do mean the same thing. And for the most part, you can use them interchangeably, which just means you can replace one with the other. Renovating is another word that I use. And that just means you're going to make changes in your house, a little bit of construction. When you're renovating, you are updating things. So like if you were to renovate your kitchen, maybe you would change out the tile on the floor. Maybe you would change out the countertops. Maybe you would change the cabinets. You might choose to get new appliances. So that could be the microwave, the stove, the oven. So doing any of those things would count as renovating. You can do a small renovation where maybe you only change out the countertops, or you could do a large renovation where you change everything in the kitchen. You could even do a renovation that involves knocking down walls and, making your kitchen bigger. Maybe you do that. I would like to do that. So renovating is just doing some construction to make wherever you are more updated. It is definitely something we talk about with homes, and it's something that everybody who owns a home does from time to time. I shouldn't say everybody, but it's very common every couple of years to renovate something, big renovation, small renovation, whatever it is. But you just want to kind of keep things updated. You want to get things that are a little bit new. If you randomly got a new microwave, that's not really a renovation. That's just you got a new microwave. If you only got like one new appliance and you weren't really doing anything else, like you only got a new refrigerator, you would just say, I got a new refrigerator. You wouldn't say, oh, I renovated my kitchen. Because you didn't, you just got a refrigerator. So you really are, using that to talk about you're making some significant changes to the way that things look. All right, so that is it for this question. It was quick and dirty. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and hit the notification bell so that you don't miss any of my other videos coming out. All right, guys, I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.